So in this particular conversation today, I am introducing Robbie, my brother, my business partner, my best mate, one of my favorite people on the planet, who has been quintessential in helping to bring everything that I do come onto the screen. And he is a jack of all trades, and I can't wait for you to meet him. And so without further ado, welcome, Robbie.
Oh, hello, mate.
Hey, pal.
How you doing? I've got this new orange flannelette shirt, and I
love it.
Yeah, I mean, you can't see it; it's just pretty classic. But I accidentally bought two.
Okay.
So they came in during the week, and I thought, if you want one,
all matchy.
Orange cardi number, pretty nice.
Right. Yeah. Well, we have a pretty fun time, don't we?
We have a great time, and I mean, the fact that we're now actually working together and we have an official business partnership. The ATO knows we're partners. I think it's real. It's not just, playing. We got serious.
Yeah.
We got our own tax file number together.
Which just makes it all the more fun when we have our daily phone check-in to discuss all the things. And there's always just so much happening. There's always so many different things for us to check in about, because there's so many little aspects to what we're creating, really. And it's been a bit over a year that we've really just kind of taken off and taken this new direction. And yeah, I'd love for you to talk about how this collaboration began. Well, this, the most recent part of our collaboration, we've been doing song and dance numbers together for a long time before this. But what was the beginning of this collaboration like for you?
Yeah, well, I think before it sort of evolved into where we are now, I think I had sort of made a move into video production. So my background had been in sort of jack of, as you said in the intro, like a jack of all trades and sort of fingers in lots of different pies. But I sort of embraced the world of video production probably at the start of 2019. And you were sort of in year 2 of your teacher trainings. And you were looking for a way for your teacher trainings to be less in the room, well, less information that had to be sort of dealt out in the room, so that there was a bit of pre-learning, so you could actually have a bit more time for Q&A. Because you'd probably run, I don't know, by that point, maybe 2, maybe 3 or more with your time at AYA as well. So, and the course was packed. There was so much content, and you would like, how can I free up some room without adding another 4 days? I might exaggerate on 4 days, but
well, you're right. I'd created a course that was it was bursting at the seams. There was no way for me to do that any more than I was already doing it, because I was already at capacity, because it was making me so exhausted to deliver it, because I had created something so huge.
Yeah. And I think some of your feedback at that time from your students, like the students were loving it, but they were like, there was an overload, or, at the end of each day, they had questions that they might not have had a chance to ask. And then they might come back the next week and they might have written down the questions, but then it was like, no time for questions. We've got to finish the rest of the course.
I was running a pretty tight ship back then. And I realized that the space that's required for those organic, spontaneous conversations that need to happen with that particular group of people that have particular questions that they want to ask, it needs to be in there, because they're paying really good money for this experience, and they want particular things that they are interested in. They want those questions to be answered. So it needed more space in there. And the only way that we could do that is if we started to think about, how do we translate some of this to film?
Yeah. I think just on that, what you're saying there about learning, I think that's how we all learn to a certain degree. Like we hear the information, but until we can it's just part of that processing, and how do we actually put that information, how does it make sense? And some of those concepts you're introducing are pretty mind-blowing, or sort of light bulby. It's like, huh? I haven't heard that before. Hang on, can we just rewind?
No time. Keep going.
No time. It's in the after class.
Yeah.
So,
which is in a really intense way to do that, PS. Like very quickly I learned, okay, for this to be sustainable, I've got to do this a different way.
But I mean, that's the beauty of your own learning whilst other people were learning. Through other people's learning, you were learning, It's this sort of lovely loop. And which just means that the people who are doing your course now, no offense to anyone who took your earlier courses, but the people who do your course now are getting a tweaked, superior, thought out product with lots of time to ask questions.
Yeah. And now they get time to watch content in the week and digest it and think about it. And then when we get together, that's the premium way that you do this training now is all about the space. So you can ask those questions because you've had this time to digest it, and they get to watch that content over and over and over again. So if they want to, so it's great. Yeah.
So that timeline would put us at the end of, we were leading up to 2019. And I think we looked at, the 5 modules that your training make up. And I think we just worked out what is sort of the most cover to cover, least amount of questions, just sort of content that could just buy you a couple of hours out of the training. And we looked at your teaching skills. And we then hired a studio in Yarraville, Kindred Studios, and we pumped it out in a day, really. We did your teaching skills, and then I was going over to work overseas. And I was expected to be there for 8 months. I was going to be away for 8 months. But obviously the world had some other plans, and I was back within about 3 months. So that puts us, I was back sort of mid-March, jobless, and with some time on my hands and looking for projects to keep me busy. I could frame that time, and we didn't know how long last year was going to be, or whether I was going to be back.
It's still going. Last year is still going, isn't it?
It's still there. But when we got sent, I was working on a ship. Obviously, that. Obviously, to anyone else, I was obviously working. Obviously. But when we got given that end of contract notice, we were told as we were leaving, it's only for 3 weeks. So people.
So just for the people that are listening, this was an amazing performance opportunity on this ship. This was a stage production on a contract, pretty amazing opportunity. You were super excited about it, and it just got cut short. And you came back to Australia under extreme duress. Like it was quite difficult to even figure out how you were going to get back because everything was in such a state of panic. So by the time you kind of got back here, you were really, like you had just been cut off at the knees. You thought that you were headed in a particular direction, but it wasn't. It obviously didn't work out that way. And then you were just sort of hanging for a while. Like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
This is not what I thought I'd be doing.
And we all sort of were like that message of you'll be back in 3 weeks. We're sitting here for 3 weeks, and then you just keep getting emails from your employer at the time that'd be like, yep, we think we're going to be back from this date. We think we're going to be back from this date. And, different countries were handling it in different ways and different companies were handling it in different ways. Obviously the tourism industry, the entertainment industry has all been dramatically affected, but you were just not sure when things are going to get busy for you, or when you're going to get employed, or making plans generally became quite hard. I mean, everyone had trouble making plans, but that
still are.
But that gave you and I a bit of creative space to just have a bit of a chat, and I think we just started looking at doing sort of I think where it started was we sort of just were chatting about some small YouTube videos primarily focused on your Chinese medicine stuff as tools that you could use to educate your patients, or flip of that to actually be, really marketing tools, content-driven marketing videos that you could put on Instagram to let the world know that you were entering Chinese medicine as a practitioner. You were opening a clinic, because you obviously opened your clinic at the start of last year too. And that's a whole nother conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the collaboration just sort of grew. And I can't remember exactly when you said this to me, but you just said, I've got some time. I want to keep working on my videography skills. There's lots of things I want to learn. Let's turn your entire course into a digitized version and put it up online. And I thought, oh my God, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. For the 2 and a bit years prior to that moment, I'd been slogging away, creating this lovely but a bit heavy analog lo-fi version of the course, which is quite special. That's the face-to-face version of the course. That's the human touch. But with all of this wild change in the world, everybody was getting this massive push to get online. It was a scramble to get online. You couldn't buy a lapel mic. You couldn't buy anything for ages.
Nothing.
There was nothing.
I remember going to Officeworks looking for a printer cable, classic USB to USB, nothing fancy, printer
Just
cable.
a bog standard printer cable.
Printer cable. Sorry, sir, 6 to 8 weeks. And I was like, oh, fuck.
Wow.
Yeah. Australia has just gone tech mad. I mean, you had millions of people trying to set up home offices that didn't have it. So,
let alone a webcam. Webcams were like gold nuggets. Toilet paper, webcam.
toilet paper.
Sorry,
webcam,
sir, 6 to 8
pasta.
months.
Yeah. You couldn't find it. So, yeah.
So you had some tech. You had some pretty sweet tech. And you said to me, let's just film it in your apartment. And I thought to myself, really? And you're like, yeah. It's like, is there enough space? And I ask all the questions. You're like, yeah, we can totally do it. And that was brilliant.
It was. I mean, filming it at your place. I mean, that wall you've obviously moved house now. You sort of got a homage to that original.
There's remnants of the brand behind me.
Yeah, but that wall was just such a thing, and it was just beautiful, and it was lovely to film on. And I think, from a financial point of view, we sort of went, what would it cost to hire a studio? And, if you're talking about filming at what is a 50-hour in-person course, and I think there's the final teacher training online, there's about 34 produced hours of video. So what, I don't know what that would actually be if you were looking to shoot that as a schedule.
Well, what do they say? For 1 hour on film, you've got to allow for 3 hours of setting up or having breaks or edits, something like that.
Something like that. Like it's a long process. And
yeah, that would have cost us quite a bit just to hire a space. And then we would have been bumping things in and out. They would have been huge days. But because it was at my house, if I was getting tired, we would just stop and have a break. It was so lovely. And you kept saying to me, there's no rush. We can set our own pace, which was magical for me to hear, because I had just been go, 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 go. And I really needed those reminders over and over again that, hey, we're setting our own schedule here. We're going to do this in our own time, which was really, really great.
And that's empowering, to be able to have something that you're working for. So you're still on a goal and you're still on that track, but to actually say out loud that we are in control, we decide how hard we want to push ourselves. And what benefit is, in this exact example, we launched the course officially in February. What difference would it have been launching it in January or December? Probably nothing.
Not much.
Nah, I don't know much. But, probably would have actually worked against us. Who wants to think about doing a training course in December or January in Australia? Not many people. It's sort of, you're pretty summer oriented. So, take control and keep working at it. But there really was no rush.
Yeah. And just with what you said before about what a blessing it was for us to have a space that we could work in, that we didn't have to find the extra cost for. I think that's one of the things that's been so brilliant about you and I doing this together, is that you've got all these skills that I don't have, and I've got all of my education and the things that I'm working on clinically and all of my years of teaching yoga and the course to add into the mix. So we've just got this really beautiful blend of really, really good tech skills, plus something that's being offered in a way that not many other people are doing it. And if I had to find somebody like you that didn't also happen to be my brother and my best mate to bring those skills to the party to create what we have created, there's no way that I could have done that at the level that we've done it.
Well, it just gets expensive, you know.
That's what I mean.
The
cost of that, but also the beautiful thing about this has been that you and I are always in conversation about what we're doing and what's happening. And then in that is also us expressing our emotions about something or things that we think are not working. That would be a lot to ask of someone that you're just hiring.
Well, and you know,
to step in.
We're even more fortunate because we're siblings that I think if you're romantically linked to someone, you still don't have that ability to be as blunt as we can. You know, there's something about blood family that there's a candor, there's an honesty that you can bring that doesn't have as much offense to it.
Yeah.
We're so fortunate that there's the least amount of eggshelling going on. Like there's more eggshell if it's with a partner or a non-blood relative, but the eggshelling when you're having to work with a contractor or a service provider to try and politely and professionally explain what you want, you know, working like my experiences of working with, let's say designers, and you're really trying to politely brief them and then give them notes, and you know that it's a personal, you know, art is up for interpretation. But to give notes about that and to try and get what you want can be really like exhausting at times, because you can't just go, that's stupid, I want it like this. You're hurting someone's feelings or being unprofessional, but it's so laborious and so time consuming to try and get to where you want to get to quickly because you're paying.
Yeah.
So, you know, we are quite lucky in that way. And I suppose from a service provider point of view, if we were to sort of focus on your business or anyone in the yoga, Chinese medicine, or any service provider, you know, it comes down to the point that once you've capped out at your hourly rate, whether that's $50 a class or a percentage of the class, but the class can only hold, you know, what's a yoga class? Let's call it 12. That's the, you know, and you might make a cut of that. Or if you're a service provider, such as a masseuse or an acupuncturist, you know, you can cap out at, let's just say it's $100 an hour. And you'll come to that point where you can't charge anymore, or you can't fit any more students in, and you can't take any more bookings. So your options are that you give up more days to take more bookings in that scenario. So you open up or you work longer days. You teach more yoga classes because you can't fit any more into that exact class. And if you don't want to do either of those two things, the only other option you've got is to find a way to sell yourself digitally to broaden your audience. And I think that's where you really got to, because you'd worked out how much of your time you're willing to sell, and you didn't want to sell anymore.
Yeah. And at that same time, I was also quite fragile because I was dealing with the burnout of finishing my degree. And I was very, very protective of how much energy I even had to give to patients, or how much energy I had to give to more teacher trainings. Because every time I did a teacher training, I had to sort of allow for time after that training to recover. And I think that I've learned how to deliver in a more relaxed way. But those first couple of years, I gave 200% because that's the only way I'd ever known to do things before. And you and I both come from performance backgrounds. So there's something in that about how prepared you feel like you've got to be, how polished and perfect everything has to be, because you've got these extremely high standards of delivery. And you've really set those for yourself, but they're very difficult to begin to kind of dismantle when you've got that history of delivering in that way. So you're right. The only way that I could continue to grow was to not be there when the trainings happened. Right?
You're totally right. Otherwise, you just have to
and lovely harder. Things that are happening. Sorry, lovely things that are happening now is students that have enrolled in the course online, they will leave comments or they will get in contact with me and they'll be discussing things that are in the course. And it actually is refreshing for me versus a course that I very well may have, I might have burnt out teaching that course sooner than I thought, because it was just so big and it required so much energy of me, and the repetitiveness of the content that I was delivering, because it had to be done in a certain way, it might have gotten a little stale for me. But by doing what we've done and transferring it into a digital space, it's really just brought it to this whole new level of life, which is fantastic, as well as being able to share it with more people without me having to necessarily be there.
Yeah, I think the whole process of, I think we had that idea first of, yes, let's put it online. And then we sort of had to work backwards and go, okay, well, how the hell do we do that?
Right. And we had to look at quite a few different platforms. Like there was a lot of research going on with what is the best way to do this? And I suppose if you're someone listening to this and you're thinking, I am behind the 8 ball, I haven't even thought about how to put my yoga classes online yet, or I've got a workshop that I want to put online and I don't necessarily want to do it just on YouTube. What do I even do? And we had to look at quite a few of those things.
Yeah. And I mean, there's multiple different products. And I think if we split it out into online courses and online teaching, I think there's different platforms for both of those. And we use different platforms for both of those aspects of our business together. But when it comes to courses, it was about working out what gave us the most control. And I think we opted for control rather than audience. So in that course space, you've sort of got two leaders, which I'm hoping the second name comes to me quickly. Udemy is the first one, and I'm about to say Squarespace, but it's not Squarespace. It is.
What was the first one you said?
Udemy, otherwise known as Udemy.
Oh, yes.
Skillshare is the other one.
Skillshare.
I was like, yes, come to me. So both of them, work that you don't really get control of the price. You can sort of opt in and out of sales. There's a few other sort of restrictive things, but they come with this massive audience that you can market to. So what do you choose? You choose lots of volume of sales at not quite the right price, or you go down another path. And we might have considered it further, but if we had looked at putting this course, which, in person with an early bird usually sits around the $1,200 mark for the live version, if you were to then go to a Udemy or a Skillshare and compete with the courses that are on that platform, you'd be lucky to price it at $150 to $200 US.
Wow.
As a full course.
At the size of the course that we created.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. With the assumption that because the audience is so huge that you would make more sales.
Yeah. But you still got a commission to come out of that $200. So yeah, we sort of just went down. There was other sort of limitations with how long a class could be and some other things that sort of led us to find Teachable, which is the platform that we use now. Teachable is more, and obviously I need to say that Udemy and Skillshare are free platforms and you lose a commission of your sales, but it costs nothing. If you don't sell anything, it doesn't cost you anything. Whereas we went with Teachable. Teachable does have a monthly or an annual cost. I'm going to call it $400 Australian dollars I could be wrong. But that gives you full control. You set the price. You know, it's your course. You're just using their framework to actually just put the curriculum on there, and you've got a lot more freedom. It does have its downsides, like it doesn't have an audience. So you're literally buying a piece of tech. You still need to market it, get people to find it, and a lot of those other things that the Skillshares and the Udemy's solved. Is there a perfect one? No, I suppose it's just finding what really works for what you're trying to do. But I found Teachable for what we've wanted to do to be great. Yeah. The downsides are sort of quite marketing and SEO, if I was to pick some flaws.
And the yoga world online was already pretty huge. It's massive now. It's massive. It's a very, very, very big market. So just the thought of marketing is such a daunting concept for people in the yoga world, in a really similar way to people in the Chinese medicine industry, I've got to say. I think those two things are very similar in that people that teach yoga and people that are drawn to becoming Chinese medicine practitioners, they're very humanitarian, and they want to, they're service roles where you want to come and provide a service, and it comes from the heart most of the time. And for a lot of people, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be a big income from doing it in a really small way. But then to think about how am I going to sell myself to promote my classes or to promote my clinic or to promote the services that I'm offering, a lot of people really find that off-putting. Even just doing what we're doing now, to speak to camera and be seen and talk with confidence, unscripted. I know a lot of people in the yoga and the Chinese med world that would just run a mile. So it's a really big thing to even get yourself into the digital world, let alone think about, where am I going to find the people? How am I going to tell people that I exist? Because I guess that's the essence of what marketing is, really. I've got to let people know that I exist. And
let me first and foremost say that marketing is evil. I hate marketing. Like, I've been a paid marketer. I've sold stuff. Marketing is bad, but without it.
Can I just add to that? The jack of all trades includes a pretty big chunk of life working in the corporate sector.
Yeah, I think that's, it's a nice background, and I'm very appreciative of some of those tools to be able to bring them, to my world.
And to me. Thank you. Thank you, corporate.
Especially in this, I don't know, let's call it lifestyle service providers, it feels uncomfortable. Like, it feels really uncomfortable to try and sell something, because I think, in the wellness industry, we hate being sold to. So why would we want to sell out? And that's a really uncomfortable position to be in, because you're like, no, I'm down with the man. I don't want to play his games. Oh no one's coming to my yoga classes. Why not? You haven't told anybody. Well, how do I tell anybody? Well, you'll need to spend some
marketing.
That's marketing. And it's really hard. I think small business marketing now is the hardest it's ever been, because, 2021, all the old free tools that we used to have, flashback 15, 20 years ago, are gone. They don't exist anymore. No one's reading your local papers or notice boards or, community newsletters, printed, anything printed is pretty much dead. Flyers, business cards, all of that. I'm not saying they don't exist. I'm just saying their effectiveness and frequency is a lot smaller. So we all moved to digital spaces, which in the beginning were brilliant. If you look at old Facebook, let's pick like circa 2009, 10, grandma wasn't on it yet. Mum was interested. Everyone was pressuring you to be on Facebook. And as a Facebook small business owner, you were just all about getting your customers to like your page.
That's right.
And we all did. We just, yes, I like you. You're throwing out likes like they're chips. You know, just, you can have one, everyone have one. And as a business owner with a Facebook page, this is pretty pre-Instagram. I don't know if Instagram is even owned by Facebook at this sort of point in time, but a Facebook page could have 1,000 likes. You could post something on your Facebook page, and all your fans would see it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the algorithm changed. So by the time you then had this audience, and then Facebook came back and said, "Oh no, we want you to pay for that now." Mm-hmm. You can chat to, let's say, 18% for free. The other 80% aren't going to hear from you unless you pay us about anything. So all of a sudden,
I think most people didn't even know that was going on until later. They're like, "How come no one's seeing my stuff?"
Yeah,
I used to make Facebook events. I used to make, everyone. That was the yoga world's way of making events and promoting them. If you were doing a workshop, if you were doing a teacher training, if you were doing a sound bath, you made a Facebook event, everybody saw it and you would get lots and lots of interest. But now I don't even know if I've been invited to something. And then sometimes I'll get a little comment from the discussion thread of that event. I'm like, why am I seeing that? Oh, there's an event here that I didn't even know I was invited to. And it just isn't what it was.
No, it's not. I think we really noticed it when those boost your event or boost your post little buttons started popping up, which was sort of the cheats way to advertise on Facebook. And I think it really stole a lot of people's money. And then obviously the move to Instagram happened, and these sort of functionalities of groups and local businesses don't really exist. And again, the algorithm thing sort of happened. So you've got this line of, like, if we looked at it chronologically, you've got all the old stuff, the newspapers dying, Facebook coming in, then the algorithm changing, and then we didn't do things like building a mailing list. You didn't have an email subscriber list because your email subscriber list was your Facebook fan base or the people who liked your page. Mm-hmm. And that's how you communicate with them. It was easy, it was fast, it was free, and you could have comments back and forth. So everyone stopped bothering with email marketing. And I think if there's one thing I've learned with our journey when we're communicating to your fans or your audience or your customers or your clients or your past attendees, future attendees, is that the email list is paramount. That's the best way now and moving forward to talk to people. And it feels really old and feels really hokey at times to be still emailing, but it from a business point of view, it means you own that list.
Yes.
Facebook can't come in and go, "No, we're gonna charge you now to talk to your people who want to hear from you." What? Yeah.
And we had to do quite a bit of research too to think about how do we want to be emailing people, because that's a whole nother conversation as well. Because there are a lot of email services out there where people don't even get the emails. They just kind of go straight to spam unless they get opened once. Then that particular email service sort of says, "Oh, this person's not that interested." So behind the scenes of everything that we've done and everything that other hardworking people are doing to move their analog business online, there's a lot of work. There's a lot of things that need to be looked at. And this email part is just one of them. So we looked at, we started doing it a particular way, and then we've changed that, and it's just part of the garden that we're constantly tending. It kind of feels like that sometimes. We're now at this place where we've got some really good foundations laid down in all the realms of what this empire requires. And now we're almost sort of going back with the hoe and the rake and the secateurs, and we're just weeding and trimming. And the other day Robbie was on the website just changing all the font. I think it's time we change the font. I think it's going to help with loading pages faster, and maybe that'll help with SEO. I'm like, great, if we're at the stage where we're making a font tweak, I think we're doing pretty well. I think we're at a good place.
Yeah, you get down like a YouTube, homegrown marketing rabbit hole, and you just sort of come up with, you watch 20 things that'll sort of say the same thing. And you're like, all right, I gotta fix fonts. So that's what I got to do.
Yeah.
I don't think
we're doing font today.
We're doing fonts, kids. Get out your font trimmers. And I don't think we've got email right yet. I don't know what
we get a lot of clicks. Like most people open the emails that we send. I think that's a really good sign.
Yeah, I mean, in my old marketing agency world, on a paid digital advertising campaign, a good click-through rate, so this is an email, I'm just making a small sidetrack, a good click-through rate was 0.11%.
What do you mean when you say good click-through rate?
So
you're not talking about email, you're talking about something else.
I'm just talking about digital advertising. So if I ran a digital ad on a newspaper website for X product, and if my click-through rate, the people who clicked on the ad, was at or above 0.11%, that was considered good.
Wow.
So that's like what? Is that 1 in 1,000?
Something like that.
Maths.
Let's not bring maths into this. Come on.
So that's that sort of click-through rate. I mean, most of our emails get about a 50%. 50% of people open them. And that's not to say 50% didn't want to open them. 50% could have not seen it. Or 50% go, I'm not in the country right now. Or 50% go, I have too many emails today. You just don't know those answers, and you're never going to know those answers. So you email, or any marketing really, you're never going to know what worked and why. And even
that's been really hard, because there's been some moments where we're like,
why did that
why
work?
That?
And then
and why this other thing that we tried a lot with, crickets.
Like, okay. I'm quite happy to be candid here, but I mean, we spent $1,000, which is a lot, but it's not a lot, on Google AdWords launching our course in between sort of Feb and March, which resulted in not a single sale and not a single trial enrollment. So, obviously our course offers a 24-hour trial for people to actually see what's in there. And we've always said that's important because...
Free trial.
Well, if I'm buying something that's that price, I want to know what the hell's in it.
I want a taster. Come on, who are you?
Yeah. It's like those great markets in London where you just walk around and you can just basically taste everything.
A free cheese.
I'm sure there was poor days when I was living there where I would just go to that Brick Lane market on a Saturday. If you just walked enough, take your jacket off, do another lap, maybe put on a cap, do another lap. It was lunch right there. It was quite good. Anyway, the trials.
Bag under that jacket, just feeding things in.
Here's for Sunday.
Bring your own beer.
But we would, we dropped $1,000, and that's when I got nervous. I'm like, oh God, I don't know what I'm
But we had a lot of people clicked on that ad, though.
Clicks were enormous. Impressions.
It's like 300 people clicked on that ad.
There's more. There's more.
There's more than that.
More than that. Like the numbers were incredibly good, but that's what was making it strange, because you're going, hang on, lots of people are seeing it, lots of people are clicking on it, no one's taking a trial. I'm not even worried about you buying it right now, but you didn't try it. So that says to me there was something wrong. I'm either talking to the wrong people, bots are clicking on it, the website is crap, or the course is crap. Something's amiss.
And the course is fantastic. Just got to say.
Not biased.
Not that.
But it was weird to have, just in a strike rate, to have all those people click on an ad of something that they might be interested in, to not bother to just see what was behind the wrapping paper. Like, there's no credit card, there's nothing. Like it's a genuine, proper trial. So that was
we were stumped for quite a bit. That really, both of us kind of went, it was a little bit, I felt a bit deflated by that.
I was definitely deflated. Because you go...
And then we think to ourselves, we don't have that big a budget at this point yet. We can't just throw another $500 or $1,000 and try again for nothing to come through. That's, whoa, that just feels like too much of a gamble. So we just kind of had to sit on it for a bit.
We'll just sit and go, okay, hold on, let's just think about this. 'Cause I think if we'd said like 1 or 2 sales from that marketing expense would have been brilliant. That would have been like, okay, that's the ratio. That's what you have to spend, that much to get those sales. Okay, this is how much we'll need to spend. Or then you get the analytics of which ad worked, because there might have been like 5 ads, and you go, okay, let's not use those ones. Let's just use that one.
Mm. And at this point in the conversation, if you happen to be somebody who's kind of listening to all of this back of house lingo, algorithms and marketing and click-throughs and all of that industry speak, and you're thinking, oh my God, I just need to film a class and get it on a platform. How do I even get started?
Yeah. Maybe
we could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, of course. I mean, if you're not a tech person, and in the most inoffensive way, like I sincerely don't mean this generalization to be offensive, but the majority of yogis I've met are at a slight odd with technology. Fair statement? Unfair statement?
We're learning. We're all on Zoom now, so we've got that. We've got Zoom under our belts.
I suppose probably not at odds, but prefer the tangible. They love the in-room experience. They love seeing students in front of them, and they would prefer to be in person than on technology. From the yogis that I have met. So, sometimes technology can be incredibly overwhelming. And I suppose that the question is, how are you wanting to structure your online yoga business? The simplest way is, if you've already got a studio that's got some sort of online payment method, is you have a Zoom account that's paid. What's a Zoom membership?
Oh, like $20, $20-ish a month, depending on how much storage you want to use with Zoom, but you can always record onto your computer. You don't have to use Zoom storage.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's your cheapest way of take your payment. And then you just email those students your Zoom link, and you're doing your live stream via Zoom. You can then at least have that interaction with your students, so you can see them, give feedback, give notes, or whatever's necessary there. And Zoom as a platform is pretty good. It's pretty stable. From a aesthetic point of view, it's not amazing, because it's using probably a pretty lo-fi webcam that you've got on your computer or your phone, and then it's obviously a pretty compressed image. But
of sight or sound, if someone had a little bit of money to invest in one of those things, what would you recommend? Do you think it's more important for the camera to be improved, or do you think that sound is more important? What do you think about that?
That's a good question, actually.
If you're keeping it low budget, I'd be leaning towards sound myself.
I think from the classes that I've done, and if you're somewhat familiar with that teacher or that sequence, you're probably not watching that much of the screen. So you are probably listening. So it's an auditory experience. And, you're going to want to hear that person better than you can see them. And I think you're going to forgive bad lighting, fluorescent lighting, or crappy camera better than you are going to be able to forgive, sorry, I can't hear. What was that? Huh?
I can't forgive bad sound. I can't forgive it.
You're a very sound-sensitive person.
I'm a super sensitive sound person. If there's a distortion or a rustling, or, sometimes you can go to somewhere and people have got, I'm going to speak about a relic tech here, a radio turned up, and it's just way too loud and it's distorted and no one else seems to be bothered, and it's pumping and my ears just start to bleed. I cannot handle that. I would be inclined to say, if you can get yourself a reasonably well-priced but good quality lapel mic, as opposed to having your computer far enough, let's say you are using Zoom and you've got your computer far enough away from you so that you can fit yourself into frame to teach your sequence, you've got to consider how echoey the room might be and how that sound is going to bounce through the computer, how the volume of your voice is also going to be in direct competition with any other sounds that are in that room, or if there's traffic sounds or if there's other sounds in the house that you're recording in. I would say that a microphone would be my tip of things to invest in if you are trying to level up a little bit and have better quality in what it is that you're providing with a yoga class, if that's the thing that you're bringing onto the digital space.
Yeah, and I'd say, the cheapest work around that would be if you're in the Mac sphere, is your AirPods or equivalent with Windows if you're running a Windows computer there. But that's just going to, at the very least, put the microphone on your body, on your person, so that if you are 2 meters away from your computer, people can hear you. The volume is sort of consistent. That's probably the cheapest and quickest way. Otherwise, there are plenty of great, thanks to last year, there's plenty of great, good lapel-based mics that talk to your computer, some that are Bluetooth, that are just going to improve your students' experience when they're doing a class with you. And, Zoom in particular, and I haven't used any of the other platforms. I know there's some dedicated yoga platforms, but Zoom makes it really quite idiot-proof to pick which mic you're using. You just literally boop, 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 if it's all connected. So I think that's really going to improve, if you're looking for something like that. But yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah. And maybe we should also just talk a little bit about encouraging people to make sure that they're not just giving away their digital stuff for free. There's really interesting things going on at the moment where, coming back to that notion again of people in the service industry, particularly in the yoga space or the Chinese medicine space, where we feel like our legacy, or we feel like our purpose is to be of service to others. And that's why we're attracted to these kinds of jobs in the first place. And I think sometimes in the same way that we can feel a little bit awkward about marketing ourselves, we could have a predisposition to undervalue what it is that we're giving, especially if you're going to be investing all of this time and maybe some money into equipment, and then you're going to be putting your classes online for free, you've got to kind of think about the broader impact of what that is. Robbie and I have been having discussions about just different things that we've been seeing in different studios and different offerings that people have been doing and what they've been setting their prices at. And I think that there's a bit of undercutting going on. So if you've got a robust studio that's going to be putting all of their online classes up for free, what's that going to do for the yoga teacher that's trying to survive in these really interesting financial times by putting their evening class up every day or have their 5 classes a week up online? They're trying to get an audience, and someone else is doing it for free, and they need to charge money for what they're doing so that they can have a living. I don't know. Do you want to speak to that at all?
Yeah. I think, at the end of the day, free yoga already exists and existed long before last year's business. Like, if you wanted a free yoga class, you just go to YouTube, find yourself some free yoga. So then if you're a yoga teacher or a yoga studio, you need to ask yourself the question is, why is X coming to practice yoga with me instead of doing yoga at home for free on YouTube? It's because you have something of value, whether that is that you've got wonderful sequences, whether your studio gives them calm, they like having 60 minutes away from home where it's quiet, it's no phone time, there's no technology involved, they're not doing, all those sort of things. You have a value. So then when we went into this, yoga from home due to circumstances beyond our control, you really got to ask yourself, why do you think your value went from something to nothing? And if it's just out of compassion, people have got a compassionate option, which is to opt for free existing yoga on YouTube. You can go and do that anytime, and there's some great stuff on YouTube. Don't let me discount that at all. But you still have a value. So you need to keep that value. I don't think it's not uncompassionate. Is that the opposite of compassionate? Uncompassionate?
Yeah, or
It's not uncompassionate.
arrogant.
Yeah, to charge people to come and do your yoga class. And if they can't
Yeah.
afford to, they have that power, that agency to say, hey, can you pause my membership for a couple of weeks? Or they just won't buy a class. You know, and if you're worried that all your students will disappear and never come back, then I think you need to have a closer look at yourself, because you do actually have value. That's why you had students in the first place. But look for free ways that you can connect with them to remind them of your value. That's your email list.
Good one.
That's, you know, using your social medias, or if you've got private Facebook groups, use that free space. Call them, text them, offer them some extra support if you want to support people. But that doesn't mean giving away your product for free. And then I think on the flip of that, you know, digital yoga, you know, I don't think anyone in the world is pricing the same as in-person yoga.
No, I don't think they are.
And that's just a reality. But I mean, we're the same. Your teacher training is cheaper digitally than it is in person. Pardon me. Which makes an in-person product a premium. And so we can appreciate that. So it's already harder doing this online to make a living. And then I think, you know, I don't want to sound like I'm putting a union hat on, but the moment you offer something for free, you know, you're saying that all yoga isn't worth anything. And if there's a yoga studio,
Big statement. Yeah, it's true. I agree with that.
And then what does that do? What does that do to, you know, yes, at its heart, yoga is about self-improvement or wellness or whatever label we want to put on it. But it's also a business, you know, and I'm not saying it needs to be over-commercialized, but people need to eat. People got to pay rent on their studios, or they've got to pay for their Zoom memberships, whatever your costs are. So it is still a business. And I think the moment, you know, what I'm seeing with some studios is, you know, there's one in particular that has got, every time it's gone into lockdown, their entire curriculum is free, every single class.
Wow.
And whilst that is,
I wonder if a lot of people are partaking, because when you give something away for free, it has no value to the person that's taking it. So
yeah, you can just log off too, because you don't care.
Yeah.
Oh, this class is dull.
Yeah, like it doesn't have that value for the person that's receiving it if it's free. I have a different example for this. I also work as an assistant acupuncturist at a public school learning clinic where the public can come and just get incredibly cheap acupuncture. But because it's so cheap, often people just don't turn up, or they cancel at the last minute because it's not, they don't value it high enough. So people can be a little more disrespectful if they know that there's not that much on the line for them. Whereas if someone has paid, even if it's $10 for a class, they're probably going to be a little bit more present for that class because they've paid for it. So the exchange is there. And I think that this kind of comes back to how uncomfortable people can get around money, but there has to be a fair exchange of energy. So sometimes I like to talk about it in that language, that if you're giving a service, that service, the energy that you are expending or offering has to be met with energy on the other end. Otherwise, these are the places in which we start to bleed out. These are the places in which we start to begin burning out because we haven't received, what's the right word? We haven't been ruminated. That's not the word.
Ruminated.
We haven't been met.
Which?
We haven't been met energetically in the way that can be balanced out.
No.
Remunerated.
Yeah. Not
That took a while.
Oh, but I stuff that word up all the time. Rumination is, I think, about...
To think. Ruminating thoughts is to have like anxious thoughts that never stop.
I think it's also something about a dairy cow's production of milk.
Ruminate.
Ruminating.
Really?
Yeah, it's definitely a dairy word. Definitely.
Wow.
Ruminating.
Maybe it's got something to do with the way that the milk swirls around, like thoughts swirl around in your mind.
Could. 4 stomachs.
Yeah. You thought of Skillshare so much faster than this word that I'm not going to say again.
Remuneration.
Anyway, remuneration. Everyone needs to be remunerated for their offerings.
Or financially.
Otherwise, at a certain point, you'll be like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And why am I staying up until 8 p.m. at night to do a free Zoom class for people? I don't want to do it anymore. I'm done.
Yeah. And I don't know if I really answered that earlier question of, marketing my business in today's age. But if you think that giving away all your yoga classes for free is the best marketing exercise, you're always going to be catching your tail, and you are never going to catch it. I think, in the old in-person way, it was always discounted introductory. You could sort of come to as, you would have seen those sort of like 2-week passes.
Yeah, introductory passes.
Yeah, which was, it was paid. It was at a great price, but, people could get a really good taste of what was available at X studio and to see if this is where I want to be. And those same sort of concepts can be applied to online classes, whether that's, maybe you could give away a class, come to a class or something similar. Mm-hmm. Here is a discount, or here is a class pass. I know that sort of there are yoga digital platforms and pieces of software that allow for the same sort of buy a pass, come to as many as you want during the week sort of thing. But yeah, giving it away for free. That goes to any business. No business has succeeded by giving themselves away for free.
No. And on a deeper level, I think if you are doing that, or you think you should be doing that, then some time does need to be spent having a good look at where your self-worth is sitting at. And that's really intense. But to be able to kind of be on screen and speak about the things that you're passionate about and feel confident about the things that you have to offer means that you've really got to believe in yourself. You've really got to back yourself. And you've got to know that what you're offering is worth people's remuneration. Damn it.
So close.
So close. Right? Because if you don't have that, you'll think that it's okay for everyone to just get all the best of you and for you not to get paid.
I think people can pick up on it. You can pick up, if you meet someone who's got low self-esteem, you'd see it in patients. You'd see it with, you can walk down the street and sometimes you can spot it. And,
yeah, I do.
If you can't believe in your, this sounds like I'm preaching, but you do have to believe in yourself to get someone else to value you the same way you should value yourself. That's that same exchange of energy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Definitely gone off on a tangent here. Definitely.
That's good.
Less tech, but I think it comes back to it. And I think that's what we're seeing, particularly as people have sort of moved to this online space. And I don't know, I think there's a bit of fear happening as people have moved online because the numbers have dropped. I'd have to take this from you. I don't know the answer here is, but with no in-person yoga currently available, are less people going to yoga? That's my question.
Well, I definitely know that there's massive Zoom fatigue going on, and everybody that I have spoken to at this current time in Melbourne, which is where we are in Australia, that people are just quite flat, and that their whole world now exists on Zoom. Their work meetings, their social life, their yoga, maybe their Pilates class, everything's on Zoom, and they're just sick of it. And I had this conversation with a group of yogis the other day, a group that I lecture, and we were just talking about the different feeling that you get when you're in a class. Like if you actually get to leave your home, go to a studio and leave your world behind and fall into the hands and the voice of your favorite teacher whom you trust. And you get to just really drop in, and you don't have to be the one driving the ship. And you can get into that sweet transcendental space. You can find that rhythm, and you come out and have that magical yoga feeling of, oh God, I can handle my life again. I feel like I'm revived. I can deal with my kids and my partner, and oh my goodness, I really needed that. Versus if you've got to do that yourself, find the time to do it. Let's say it's a pre-recorded class, roll out your mat in your yoga square in the lounge room. And you have to self-motivate the whole process, because it's just so easy to go, oh, that's enough. I'm distracted. I just check my emails. I put the kettle on. Okay, I'm just going to stop right there. You can't do that in the middle of a yoga studio. Yeah, you guys got a kettle? I just need a cup of tea. I can't do that. But everyone's so kind of sick of themselves. I think that's a pretty big, broad brushstroke. But I think particularly in Melbourne right now, when we're recording this, there's a heaviness, there's a flatness. People are just over it. So the thought of drumming up that spark of, yeah, I'm going to do yoga every day, and I'm going to bake bread, I'm going to learn Spanish, that's just not quite the vibe at the moment. So yeah, numbers have dropped. And I don't think people's engagement levels have the capacity to actually be there for a 60-minute class or a 90-minute class. Back in the day, it was the thing, like all yoga classes were 2 hours long.
What?
Yeah, that's an Iyengar thing, I think.
Wow.
Iyengar practices were all 2 hours long.
That blows my mind.
Yeah, and now 60 minutes is quite long for many people.
Well,
Where 60 minutes was sort of a sacrilege thought. To shift these 90-minute or 2 hour practices to 60 minutes was like, oh, what's the point of that?
I wouldn't be surprised if they push it further. Like there's this whole, I'm going to go off topic here, but, there is this push at the moment, which I think, if my gut is saying anything, it's driven by TikTok, of short form content from a marketing point of view. Everything's about short form, got to be short form. There's an article the other day that said the new ideal podcast length is 3 minutes.
You told me that, and I just was like, what?
3 minutes. Keeping in mind that 60 seconds of that's probably going to be ads. So it's really a 2-minute podcast. And I just go, wow. So
it can't be called that. That's got to be called something else.
Oh, it does have some sort of buzzword. Don't ask me what it is, but
a mini pod.
Power pod.
Power podcast.
I'm 100% making that up.
Well, I like
it. Are we looking down the barrel of, the 9-minute yin yoga sequence? The power.
Yeah, 5-minute yin yoga classes. No, that's what I love about yin yoga, is that it pulls us out of these fast yang production, quantity driven things that everyone's dealing with all the time. And that yin yoga is actually like, no, we are going to be quiet and slow and unwind all of that social conditioning that's gotten in there and taught you that your self-worth is equated to your productivity, and your productivity has to keep being more snappy and more compressed, because no one even wants to watch a minute length video on YouTube anymore or Instagram anymore. I think yin yoga is actually quite rebellious in that, as long as it's not a 5-minute class, because it does give you this place where you get to dismantle all of these intense yang working conditions that you've been soaking in if you've been living in a capitalist society,
which we are,
for any time.
But do you think then that online yoga works best as a live offering rather than a play as you go?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I do think that people would probably commit to the full length of it if it was live, a live streamed kind of class. And I think some of those reasons would be out of respect for the person who's delivering it. versus this is a pre-recorded thing. If I've had enough at 20 minutes, no one's going to know. I can cut myself short. The only person that's going to kind of be bothered by it is me. That's just purely on me. But if you were on a Zoom with someone doing something live and you bailed, I don't know, maybe you would feel bad about that. Maybe that's a reason to stay. So yeah, I think a live stream, people would commit more to that.
Yeah. I think that, yeah, I agree with all those sentiments. And I think there's something about an appointment time. Yoga is at 7. I've got to be ready by 7 or they will start without me and I can't rewind. So I suppose, if you are looking to grow, this is me working this out as I go, but I suppose the growth is online scheduled yoga rather than a digital access whenever you want library to try and maintain the value of the in-studio experience.
I think what I've observed with people is that it's very difficult for people to self-motivate when left to their own devices. It wasn't that long into last year when everybody had to shift their yoga classes onto the digital screen that we saw a massive plummet in, at what point in the class were most people stopping? And it was about the 20-minute mark of what would usually be a 60-minute mark. Like, oh, okay, that's as much as people are willing. Like, this is a graph. I'm going down. That's 20 minutes. That's as much as people are willing to commit to this when they're on their own, which also tells me that we're really easily distracted. We self-sabotage very easily as well. Like, I'm just not going to do that. We don't necessarily have good discipline. And unless we're in the room with somebody who is keeping us on track, we'll quit. We'll quit pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So when people are left to their own devices to self-manage their time, their motivations, their drive, their everything, it's really, really hard for a lot of people. I know for myself, I've bought a ton of Chinese medicine courses, online courses, and maybe it's just a little bit too soon because it hasn't been that long since I've finished university, and I've been at a couple of universities. I've got a few under my belt. But yeah, the days just go by and I think to myself, every day I should be scheduling 30 to 60 minutes of self-study and just chipping away at all these awesome courses that I've bought, but I'm just not doing it. I'm working on our empire. There's tons of other things that we're doing, but that particular thing doesn't quite make it into the priority list for me at the moment. But if I had signed up for some kind of course that was scheduled and it was, say, every Saturday morning, it's an hour, you need to log in and do it, I'd be doing it because I've committed to something where I'm going to be accountable. My accountability is going to be better managed when there are other people involved versus if it's just me.
Accountability is so interesting, isn't it? God.
Mate, does accountability only matter if somebody else is paying attention? Totally. Does accountability matter if it's just me? Maybe not.
In this example, definitely not. And I think that speaks broadly to a bigger issue, but
we can do another episode.
I'm definitely not qualified to talk about that. But yeah, coming back to sort of where we started, it is hard as a non-yoga teacher, but involved in this community. It is hard for yoga teachers to run a successful business and at the same time to still feel connected spiritually to what they're teaching. You if I go too far out, you've sold out, man. But if you're far too over the other way, man, you're not eating. So where is that line? That
is a very difficult balance to strike.
Yeah. And
I think the thing that happens is it's very much the same with Chinese medicine. Again, these worlds are really similar. And you get into choppy water when you take something that is a spiritual practice and you try and make it into a business.
Well, there's this, guilt that service providers in this industry feel that if I'm successful, I should feel guilty because I make money helping people. They're your own.
That's just a mind frame that needs to be shifted, because the more money you make, the more capacity you have to share those gifts.
There's a difference between making money from helping people and ripping people off. Yeah, if you're taking advantage of people, then you're gonna have to bear that own cross. But if you're just good at what you do, which means you make money for it, we've got to remove that guilt. And yoga teachers have got to sort of get over that. You need to be able to put food on the table by doing what you love doing, because otherwise, what's going to happen as an outsider observing is that you're going to go, I can't survive doing what I love doing, so I'm going to have to do something I don't love doing to be able to survive, which is probably goes against the whole reason you wanted to be a yoga teacher in the first place.
It's complicated. It's really complicated.
It's hard.
Yeah.
So it's, I would encourage any yoga teacher to empower themselves with tech, with marketing, and you don't have to be a wizard. And there are lots of easy to use platforms, devices, etc., that can empower you up to allow you to do what you love doing and to be successful at it in this current world, because there is a way. It does take a lot of work, but there is a way. Otherwise, you are going to go down that path of, I'm going to have to choose something else, or I'm going to be really, really, really hungry, or I'm going to be really, really tired because I've had to teach 80 classes this week. And that's a lot of
that is not sustainable.
No, you're not going to see your family. You're not going to do anything.
Before any of this kind of digital stuff even happened, the turnaround rate for people that wanted to shift their careers into yoga teachers, how long they were able to manage that for. I think some of the people that trained at the same time that I did at AYA and just before and just after, I think we noted that the good yoga teachers, many of the good yoga teachers, lasted about 5 years before they went, I need to do something else, or I need to study something else to bolster this, or I need to do something more niche and specialized, and I want to learn different training. And a lot of us end up going off and just mostly teaching yin or restorative or practices that are much more about self-care and rebuilding and replenishing, because we feel like we've just cooked ourselves teaching all these flow classes. I mean, I feel like there's a whole different conversation that we could have at some point about a few more sort of specific things that people could do to set themselves up, some tools and tips and tricks and things like that. So that's definitely something we could do.
Yeah, I think
kind of narrow things down.
Yeah, I think I'd love to come back and just sort of come up with some real marketing strategies that don't cost the earth, and even free tips that we could sort of talk about.
I think people would like that
to be found.
And they'd be things that would be really relevant across the board. So if you're somebody who's just starting to try and get more clients for your acupuncture clinic or your herbal medicine clinic or your naturopathic clinic or whatever it is that you're doing in that sector, or the yoga sphere, I think the kinds of things that you would bring would be relevant for both. So yeah, we could definitely do that.
We can have a chat about that, sure.
Yeah. Wow. What's your summary of this beautiful conversation that we've had? How would you sum up?
I think just sort of where I was just at before. I suppose it's I want to see, when I look at you in this industry, I love watching how empowered you've become, to take the healing and to really grow as a business person. And I think everyone is capable of that. And whilst that can feel daunting, empower yourself with the knowledge and tools that are out there to grow that. Because at the end of the day, that means you're going to be able to heal and work with more patients or more students and connect with them and help them. And that's not a bad thing. So that's what it's about.
I love that. Yeah. And don't give up. There's so many there's so many cool things on offer. If you're willing to sit through some DIY YouTubes or punch the questions that you have into the internet and just start trawling and researching, because even for Robbie and I, this journey hasn't necessarily been easy. The ease has been that we're a beautiful fit and we work so well together because we communicate really well and we work at a very similar pace. We're a really good fit. But we didn't come into this knowing everything. We've only figured things out because we've tried stuff or we've researched it or we've looked at it. So I think all of those skills that we have when we encounter problems is the exact same thing that's going to come up for people here. You come up against a little roadblock, instead of feeling so overwhelmed and daunted by it, just stop, take a beat, breathe, look at it, look at what's around it, see what other options you've got, and then you can start to make a decision about how you're going to move through that little block. There'll be moments where you feel like you're really getting into a nice canter and you're beginning to jog along, and then there'll be moments where you get stopped again. But don't give up. Keep going, because we need more people that are willing to step into this space with confidence and networking abilities and a sense of community, so that we can all help each other to shine and grow. And we can all do those things that we love the most, which is usually coming straight from the heart and taking care of our fellow humans. And we are at a very interesting time now where people need these services more than ever before. People need groundedness. People need some guidance in helping to keep their minds soft. There's a lot of fear, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of difficulty in planning the future. So we need the yoga teachers and we need the acupuncturists and we need the herbalists so that we can all get through this together. So yeah, come and join us. Come and get online. Thank you so much, Robbie, for having this conversation today. You bring the most exquisite wealth of knowledge and humor and savviness to this collab. I am incredibly blessed. This is wonderful. And I hope that you have enjoyed listening to us, ramble on with all sorts of things today. And we're gonna find an ending right here. So thank you so much.